Hey, what's going on, everyone? Astrologer Eric Rosen here, and welcome to Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. I will be your astrologer, trained conducting the major transits ahead for the astrology from April 16th, 2025 till April 22nd of 2025, as if there were another year that we would be in, but maybe that's some South Node Virgo jazz for you, trying to get all the little details in. But before we get into what this horoscope is more about and what's coming ahead, I do want to say that my tiered offering is out now, tiers 1, 2, and 3. So if you're looking to get more astrology content from me and even want to work with me on a little bit more personal level, you can check that out in that Kajabi link below. Tier 1 is weekly sun sign horoscopes. Tier 2 has that plus dailies. And then Tier 3 actually includes some group coaching and even the astrology specials that I do and will do. So it's kind of like a monthly pass to those things. So you can check that out in that link below. And of course, as always, if you want to get a personal astrology reading, that's down below. And if you're really ready to circumvent the mess that's coming in this world, in this country, kind of pave your own path and want to work with the wizard, that's where my 3 and 6 month coaching containers come into play. It's a lot more than coaching. It's getting you unstuck, getting you unfucked, and getting you to a place of your true creator potential, because that's really the way through the astrology right now. So let's talk about this. Celestial Conversations. I mean, I do this weekly horoscope to give a guiding light to people, to be like, yeah, you know, it could be a little confusing, a little chaotic. Like, we're not in Kansas anymore. It just seems like so often we're going through incredibly rare transits that we've never seen before. And this week is no different, with Mercury crossing Neptune for the first time in Aries. So I think that really is the major theme of this, you know, is like, how do we use these transits to get above that storm, to get above the chaos, and also not fall into our own personal chaos of like the old patterns, you know, things that hold us back, because there's a lot of abundant opportunities for breakthroughs, you know, like there's really no need for breakdowns right now. The breakdowns would come more from like, I can't imagine dissolving the marriage with my old sense of identity and self and the way that the reality used to work, that we have to clean that up fully and not go into the backside with that breakup. You know, it's like the backside's always like, you break up with someone, but then, you know, you kind of like still think about them or talk to them or think about, well, what if, or what if we try this, you know, start like negotiating, going through the stages of grief. And so I think that's something that maybe we're collectively not like talking about enough, is like, there could be stages of grief, and it's not just like a clean cutting the cord all the time with ourselves. And it can be that, but it's recognizing when those waves like come back, and it feels like an exiled part of self that I would say is probably a job a lot for IFS. If you're familiar with IFS work, like Neptune and Mercury meeting, I think, is an opportunity to have more compassion and grace for our minds, our ego's identification of things, and to see that it's maybe not so much about trying to get away from the distortions of self or the past self, that it's more about an integrative effort. I feel like that's a really positive tool that we can use to kind of rise above that personal chaos right now. But all in all, I think that with this transit, we can start to find some innocent, pure outlook more on our personal lives again. Like Mercury being out of Pisces now, it's not so crazy and all over the place. And so I think it's good. I think we can start to focus more on like what's going on with us, like having more of a compassionate mindset around things, you know, kind of like a happy-go-lucky, like can-do attitude, a little dutiful energy, and to see that we don't need to like Aries, you know, is all, and Mars too, which is still in Cancer, is all about, you know, keeping the eye on the prize, like, so to speak. And so with Mercury being on Neptune, Mars still being in Cancer, at least to start this week, it's more about our personal lives. It's more about our foundation. It's really not about what the world is doing. Like we're going to have plenty of that when Mars goes into Leo, back into Leo on the 18th, and starts to oppose Pluto in Aquarius, but it's also going to get squared by the sun that's going to enter Taurus on the 19th. And so we're wrapping up Aries season this week. So there are opportunities to fall into traps of worrying too much about what others are doing, and I think we just really got to keep the eye on the prize. I mean, Sun in Taurus is always about your credentials of your worth and your talents, your abilities, what it is that you're creating physically. It's not about, what you're gonna do. That could get brought up about Sun square that Mars and Leo, where it's like the ego, like getting all pumped up, like I'm gonna do this, but like there has to be that follow through. It's also about making sure that we don't shortchange ourselves or the capabilities of what we are able to do, and like rise above any, friction, dramas, just self-doubts, and actually go and create our best work once again this week. We do have Saturn in the North Node meeting in Pisces. It's going to be on Venus. That's out of that retrograde. It's all planets direct now, so things are moving forward. These planets in Pisces are making a sextile over to Uranus, and so this is where the breakthroughs can come in. I mean, we don't have to, just because things are moving slow doesn't mean that we don't put in the effort. I know that South Node in Virgo, which Mercury rules Virgo, and Mercury now on Neptune, maybe it could kind of like bring up, wanting to prioritize the things that feel more dreamy and positive, but we still have things that we have to do, right? We still have responsibilities with all this energy on Saturn. And so I think it's about approaching it from kind of a positive, enthusiastic place of things, like the things that we have to do. It's like, it's still a grind, but there's a lot of, it's really easy to stay in this higher vibration of things if we're embodying this like live and let live energy. And I know it can be really easy to feel like there can still be triggers that come up, around what others are doing, what people in the world are doing, what groups of people are doing, and even our own personal relationships for sure. But I think we have to just take it automatically back to this sense of spiritual stewardship, which is just how to embody just more of our light, more of our positivity. But what's nice is about the challenges that we've been going through and learning to overcome those, it doesn't have to be some like fake, forced positivity where it's like a facade or like it's inauthentic, like it's only momentary for like social media or a brief interaction. It reminds me of like trying to just glam up like a job interview or something or prove, but to really like go back to that, to really go back to the embodiment piece of it and really walk that walk. And it's not so much about, talking a big game right now. I think a lot of people could, talk a big game right now and be like, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, or this is what's positive and what's going on. I think it's more about how do we find the undertones of positivity and like lifting each other up, during these times, to see that like conversations with others, any, messages that are being like put out, exchanges, that it's designed to just be authentic, but also like lift others up, because Neptune on Mercury could, put on a mask and be like, I'm a saint, and just like start like bypassing like more the divine order of things. But I think it's really about still staying humble and coming back to that spiritual connection, to see that things can feel much more innocent and free and easier in a lot of directions to go. And there's a lot of positivity that comes up here, but also putting that positivity in the just like really positive spaces that are building like our partnerships and our communities. Like these are the places that we really want to go right now. You think about it, it's like Sun shifting into Taurus, and then it's going to square over to Mars and Leo that's like still in shadow. And so it's not just about what we want to create in our own bravado and the royalty of like those things. Like there is going to be a check this week, and the sun's going to win because the sun always wins in battles with Mars. And so we have to let our values win. We have to let stability and consistency win of like things that are good for our more positive relationships, that we're connected to. We're starting off the last full Taurus season with Uranus. The sun will enter Taurus next year, but Uranus will actually leave before it catches up during Taurus season, which is really interesting. So this is the last time that we're going to have, and we've been seeing this since 2018, this like radical upgrade with upgrading our best stuff that we do in the world. Like it's Taurus, it's creation energy, it's what you're planting for it to grow, and tilling it and plowing those fields and putting in the effort in and knowing that you're worthy of receiving it. There is a feminine energy to it. Uranus, of course, is this disruptor, so it's like, it's hard to stay consistent. It's hard to predict exactly where it's going with a relationship, where it's going with money. And it hasn't been the easiest since 2018. And that's why I could feel like musical chairs sometimes with relationships, or at least where the relationship stands, or how you feel about the things that you're creating or working on, or, projects that all of a sudden, take a turn, or even just like a job business situation. But it's teaching us how to pivot and actually rise up and be like, oh yeah, like this curveball, this unexpected energy is forcing me to really own my sense of value and worth, and play a higher game. And so I think that's the positive of what we can use the square for between Mars and the sun, is seeing that we can bring that creative flair to things, and to not, fall into the drama around, oh, my kingdom is sinking because it doesn't feel stable or something like that. That this is about creating our own updated kingdom. This has been very much about shifting out of three-dimensional constructs of South Node Virgo into more higher dimensional 5D and above, with that North Node that's on Saturn and Venus. And I know that sometimes that can feel like a cliche, the 5D, especially because, we have to still have empathy for the understanding that there's still the physical reality. There's still challenges that come up. There's like, I don't think it can just be as simple as like this bypassy spiritual think and grow rich conception of things, where we just all dream it into existence. Like the way that I'm reading the astrology is, it's more about the excitement of busting out of our own loops, busting out of, like, you could say with Saturn that's going to be hanging out with Venus still a little bit longer. It's crazy how long these two planets have been together, like idolizing, like worshiping a value that's actually not really in integrity. It's not in a real true spiritual holy alignment. So for a lot of people, that could be money, that could be the flashiness of like showing up in the reality, but that's more like media based, like it's like Pisces, it's like actors and actresses and stuff. And so there could be a push for people like trying to create like stability in terms of like their more public image and things like that. I think that we have to remember that the aspects to Uranus is saying like, hey, like go for the soul capital piece, which is the term that's used to be like, you can't take your money, your treasures, your accolades, your trophies to the grave with you, but you can celebrate and actually bring the momentum, the currency of the soul over, like when we cross over and we exit stage, whatever, left or right, like, and you go over to the other side, and then it's like, then you get chances to like incarnate somewhere else, like I think we have to start thinking more long-term like that, which to the South Node in Virgo can seem like, gosh, that's that's impractical. Like there's things that need to be fixed. There's systems that need to be perfected and figured out. But it's like, how are those systems going? How's the schedule routine going? How's it going with, the perfect health regimen? It's like none of these things are really yielding their typical harvest. It's North Node in Pisces, where it's more about thinking from this much more higher spiritual level. With it being on Saturn and Venus, like there is an asking for us to diffuse like a true sense of embodied ethical spirituality in our reality, in our actual lives, to how we deal with relationships and money and the projects, and how we deal with our responsibilities, basically just a lot of the physical things that come up in life. And so, there is going to be this sort of personal, like, hoorah energy, I think, that can come, even if it's just brief, when Mars enters into Leo. But with it starting to make oppositions to Pluto and the square to Taurus, it's really not about, hey, I've got like the perfect, formula to solve like the deepest, like craziest, complex issues for the world. I think we have to kind of be still like humble in a way of like, it's like really owning like where we actually at, in a well-rounded fashion. I think it's a lot of this is like looking at things are going to feel better if we honor that the lowest common denominator of the challenge that we're going through in life and where we're at vibrationally, of how we respond to that, is going to be more predictive factor of the timeline and the trajectory that we're on for our future, the type of people that we're going to attract and things like that. And so I don't think it's so much about fixing something in the physical. I think it's going to be more so about not sweeping it under the rug, like ignoring the intuitive clues of like what we can do for better just character development with Mercury on Neptune, and to just like keep this into like a really positive sense of things. I think it's, for some it could be like a blind optimism, but there's a simplicity to Mercury in Aries, and it can be fairly straightforward. But in Neptune, it can maybe cloud some of like the moral judgment. So I think this has a lot to do with knowing how to just like focus on like what actually feels that is truly spiritual, with Neptune being the ruler of Pisces, and this conjunction between Saturn, North Node, Venus, making that sextile to Uranus. It's like, it's going to be defined in the thing that you're making decisions around, that you're the most disciplined around, that you're the most consistent around. And so this is like a reminder, like if any point that the mind or your sense of identity not feeling strong, like not feeling your best, that's where some just deeper spiritual excavation development work is coming up. And it could feel like really random, like, and the randomness like shows up in the physical reality, and then it's like it's there to get our attention, but it's designed to help us like innovate and overcome blocks and obstacles. It doesn't have to be difficult, doesn't have to be hard. I think that we keep just this optimistic attitude around things, that we just deal with things as they come up, which can seem like a really simple life philosophy, but I think it's, a reminder that South Node in Virgo, like there's always going to be some little thing that comes up, but like it's really just how our minds, how we react and respond to it. It's like, do we really need to stress about it? The stress is definitely going to come from the mind and like crazy thinking this week with that Mercury Neptune, even though Mercury is going to move over Neptune pretty quickly. But the stress could dilute the potency of what it is that we're creating. And so, creation embodies a lot of different things, right? It could be a financial situation, a business, a project. It can be a thing with family. It could be like literally birthing a child. It could be the creation of a stronger sense of identity just by choosing more positive, consistent behaviors this week. We still do have that Sessi quadrant between Pluto and Jupiter. And so we don't need to worry about so much the world like agenda or views of things or what society's like up to. I think it's more about a personal understanding of like, yes, things that happening in the world do actually influence, like the circumstances in our personal life. But the real danger is paying attention to how do we respond and the level of intensity to letting it shape our perspective and beliefs, that the bigger outlook on like our circumstances, and like not feeling defeated, like our superheroes, like Kate got a hole like punctured in it, and we're a victim of it and there's nothing that we can do about it. This is more so about that we have all the goods, like we have the ability to see through really any storm. Like with this astrology, I think we're evolving to a point where things might start to feel more intense, because while we're ending the fire season of Aries and it's going to be Taurus season, but now Mercury's kind of replacing it, but then Mars moves out of the water sign of Cancer finally and moves into Leo. These are intense things, but of course, intensity, fire energy, it could be destructive and burn things down, or it can light the fuse of something more positive, to like where we actually get our energy moving on things. And so the square over to the sun is reminding us like, hey, like, don't go fixating on things that are just going to cause like stress and drama that actually doesn't have more of a flow to it, that's more feminine. This is a lot about like, you could like kind of like mostly masculine energy, but also like the feminine energy, like being supportive of it. The feminine energy is like just paying attention to the impact that it's having. It's a bit of a transpersonal approach, like this astrology of like, hey, your actions of what you're taking, like it does matter. Like Mercury, Neptune, it's like the universe doesn't revolve around us just as individuals. And so we can look at it more as like, what is in your kingdom? What is actually in your universe? I think this is a good energy to actually be okay with like shrinking down the vision and version of what it is that like we're looking at, because we can actually make more of an impact, because then we're not like spread so thin. And so this brings up strategy that can be intuitively led about like, where are we really placing our energy with things, and that it's not that there's not plenty of problems in the world to solve or plenty of people to help and be of service to, but it's understanding that we have to still make sure that we're feeling good, like that we're nourished, and that the things that we're doing, it's like we're only doing our best stuff. Like this is a reminder, and as triggering as it can be, because there might be that desire to like want to stabilize things, the uncertainty of like, where's it going, especially, finances, relationships, like seeing the road ahead. And I think that's the hardest part about this. Like for those that have a tough time accepting that the road is not fully paved ahead, and that there's going to be obstacles, challenges, that there's going to be uncertainty, but that's where it's hard. But for those that embrace that courage, it's seeing it as like, well, since it's not as defined and we're the ones more defining it now and creating it and creating our best stuff, then that opens up the opportunity to kind of like wave the white flag for the ego, like that's trying to come at things from more of a place of like, whether it's just like surviving through the chaos, or trying to fit into a situation, like keep the peace, like just all the different things that we do to kind of like diminish our own spark, our own love, our own light, that it's going, fuck it, like let's really put the courage of things out there, and that choose the best stuff, because it's like, it's that one big opportunity that sometimes like we get to shine, and that the more quality that we're putting our efforts like into the things, and just the gratitude for it. And I think gratitude's always going to be the thing during times like this with this astrology, that allows us to stay spiritually humble with like the things that we're taking care of, and the optimism versus like where sometimes the ego, like the flashiness, especially with Neptune now and Mercury, maybe wants to project it to be what it's going to be, that might not actually be in divine order, and that we don't start feeling depleted or despair, just whatever, like those lower extreme drops, like when the ego's not feeling well with Neptune, of the identification of things, that bravado of things, that we don't kind of sink and start creating more of a destructive belief or mindset, and then we start feeling like lazy with Tauruses, and we're not creating our best because we're believing that this thing that didn't go the way that we thought that it was going to go, like we were putting all our eggs in that basket. We're putting all the ammunition in that basket. It's interesting. It is Easter weekend for those that celebrate it, like using that metaphor. And so, but it's like, we don't need to do that to ourselves. We just need to like be cool with what we got going on, and then just like build on top of it. I think this is back to kind of like the, hey, just approach it with good moral values that are for you, that is good for the others around you that you affect, and have a spiritual divine connection, and you go and create that. And it's a pioneering energy. There's a lot of success in that energy, and it might not be the flashy, get rich like quick thing, because people can win a lot of battles right now, like abandoning ethics and morals, but we have to do our best to just be like, who are we to start playing critic or judge of like what karma that they're creating if they're not coming at it from a positive place. I think, we don't need to like denounce them or people that connect with that. Maybe some people need that lesson. It's more about attracting from the positivity of our, vibrations. It's just about being a good spiritual person, and seeing that God Goddess has given us so much to work with, and that we just need to make sure that we're paying attention as always to our thoughts. But like, because of Neptune, it's like, it would be like, I'm doing this, I'm going this way, and I don't care what happens. But it's like, it's a dead end. It's like just marching towards something that's not going to work very well. So I would pay attention to that. The whole like Easter metaphor too that I mentioned. It's like I mentioned about not spreading ourselves like too thin. Like, ooh, like what's in this egg? Like there's all these like treasures over here. I think it's more about this innocence of Aries, where it's like, hey, maybe like plant the eggs like for like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. Where it's like they can't cover like a half a football field. Of like finding eggs. I think we have to see it as that. I think we gotta like treat a part of ourselves as like, we're innocent, we're new to this. Like there's a toddler energy within all of us, and pretending where we know where it's going, and that we're so sure-footed in the actions that we're like taking would be foolish. That would be overcompensating for an insecurity, a fear. And that the same way like a toddler, a young one, like learns to trust of the stability, the safety, the support of the parent is there, we can do the same with the divine and understand that it's like, okay, Neptune is that outpost energy of spiritual transmissions, and it's like it's here, like it's with me, it's a part of me. It's not in Pisces now, like it's currently in Aries, and so we can tune into that spiritual antenna at any moment and find like what is the safety, like what is the protection, like how do we not be like begging for safety or protection, like whether it's like from our own thoughts or even just our own actions, or just even just trying to like, you know, not show up or not like take the step. It's more so just like, okay, like the divine gave us, you know, intellect, it gave us a body, it gave us talents and abilities, it gave us this astrology to be able to create. And so I think it's more so like saying, how can I do my best during this time? Not from a performance basis, but like, what is the best ethical, spiritual thing that you would have me, you know, create and do? But it's interesting too, because we got to watch out for like the dualistic concepts, and just make sure that we're not creating our own sense of right, wrong, duality of like a new age spiritual religion. Like if I don't do this, you know, then it's bad or something, and then we tank our vibe. It's, you know, like the lessons are the lessons. There's lessons in everything. It's more so just like, how can some of this be like more selfless, where it's like, we deserve to like feel good even during uncertain times, even when there are challenges in the world. And the people that benefit from us shining that light deserve to see us like shine that light. And so like, how do we put that light out more? How do we choose that better, brighter timeline that's available to everyone? And I think everyone is constructing their own timelines like right now. And the hard part is like some of them might be false. You know, it's like pie in the sky thinking. It's a pipe dream. There's no actual substance to it. And I think that'll show up pretty quickly for people, especially during Taurus season. But the way to avoid like being one of those is like, just, you know, stay grounded. Like it's Taurus season, you know, like the easiest way to avoid those energies, or talking about what we're like going to do, but like not actually following through, is to see what's more simple and what actually we can do, you know, and actually addressing the issues that are showing up in front of us. And a lot of this has to do with, yeah, you know, like how we're feeling, what the vibe is, but it's more so like how are people responding to us? How are we responding to life? And remember that intuition is there to help us through that. So positive week, but again, it depends on the train of thought. It depends on the belief system, the perspective of things. You know, it's positive for those that are just, ready to innovate and shed the old and go through these big old, you know, door openings for a higher expression of creation, of a sense of self, the things that we're doing in life. But, you know, it could feel stressful for those that are critical and judgmental and saying, nope, it's not supposed to go this way, it's supposed to go this way. Like basically fear of change, you know? And so embracing change, transformation is like, energy is always in motion. So like, let's harness energy and attract positive energy and use positive energy to create by being in a better, higher vibration, because that energy is always in motion. And so, you know, the higher vibration is definitely not faking it, and just like going through the motions. Like it's staying very self-aware of where are things actually at. Like really like look at things and bring beauty to it, bring spiritual reverence to it, bring, you know, that like leaning into it from a more beautiful identification spiritual standpoint, that that's going to be the thing that helps us like overcome a lot of the things that actually don't need to be like adjusted or fixed, that it was more just an illusion of a perception that there's some little thing that we got to fix. It's more about addressing the more obvious things, like from a soul level, that brings up a bigger, crazier philosophy, about like, hey, like time's limited, in this lifetime. So take advantage of it. Not in like a, this is only one life, like go out and, hustle, grind, just not have any spiritual connection and just create for the sake of creating from the physical. As one friend put it, like she keeps hearing that the meek shall inherit the earth. Like, this is the beautiful time for those that are creating just for the sake of the creation element of it. It's going to go so much better, and we get to have a better experience in that way. So if you're feeling stuck, if there's something that you want to create, or just you're having trouble figuring out things during your personal life, feel free to check out those offers and those links. Anything from the one-on-one reading, the tiered offerings, even the group coaching. And of course, I'll even put in the link for the ebook if you just want to do some self-study, because this is just such a beautiful time, for us to use on a personal, individual basis. And I think that we don't need to marry this idea that things can feel beautiful forever. That would be like a very Mercury, Neptune thing. But I think that we can see the ultimate positive in things if we just allow ourselves to see life in a more better, positive way that steers very much into the empowerment of being a spiritual being, all the assets, the opportunities, the resources we have, and spend as much little as time is necessary, if it's even necessary, in any like victimhood, like defeat energy, because that's of course what tanks vibration. So appreciate you all. I'll see you next time.